Hello everyone! Last week we covered the story of the Guardians, and part of that story only took place within the comics. Valeera Sanguinar was a huge part of that story, but after it we don't really see her doing anything. That's why I thought it'd be fun to take a quick look at her story. So let's begin, shall we? Valeera's story mingles with both Medan and Varian's story, so let me first explain what happened to Varian. The Black Dragon Onyxia disguised herself as Lady Prestor and she infiltrated Stormwind. She easily gained control over Varian after the death of his wife, but slowly Varian would break free as his love for Anduin grew. That's why she had to come up with a new plan, and this time she wanted to split Varian in two. One strong-willed version and one weaker version. She orchestrated a kidnapping as Varian traveled to Faramore to attend a peace summit with Thrall and Jaina. Varian's captured, Onyxia does her magic, but then the Naga show up and they disturb everything. The strong-willed Varian makes use of this opportunity and he jumps into the ocean, while the weak-willed Varian is taken by the Naga and would later be ransomed back to Stormwind. The strong-willed Varian didn't die from his dip in the ocean, instead he washed up on the shores of Durotar. He had amnesia, he had to fight with a crocodile, and as he was fighting he was found by Rhaegar Earthfury. Rhaegar was a gladiator slave master and he had just lost a very strong fighter, Blood-Eye Redfist, so he was looking for a replacement. As luck would have it, they see Varian fighting with the crocodile and he actually wins the fight. Rhaegar then enslaves him and makes him part of the team together with Brawl Baremantle and Valeera Sanguinar. Valeera was young for Blood Elf standards, but she wasn't a child. When she was a child, her parents were killed by bandits and she was forced to steal to survive. She did pretty well on her own, she even survived some scourge attacks, until one day she tried to steal a talisman from a shaman. She got caught, they threw her in jail and sold her to Rhaegar before she could escape. That's how Valeera ended up in this arena team, and at first the team doesn't really get along with each other. Varian doesn't want to fight for amusement, Brawl doesn't like Valeera, and Valeera doesn't like Brawl. Brawl sees the Blood Elves as traitors for turning their back on the Alliance and giving in to their magical addiction. Valeera doesn't take kindly to those kinds of insults. She doesn't see herself as part of the Horde, but she is proud of her people. She didn't have a choice when it came to the magical addiction, it was passed on to her by her mother from drinking her milk, and her people leaving the Alliance? What choice did they have? The Alliance Grand Marshal Garithos used and betrayed the Blood Elves during Warcraft 3, and the Scourge nearly wiped out her race. What were they supposed to do? They were about ready to go at each other's throats, but Varian told them to save their rage for their enemies in the arena. The very next day, they made their way to the training grounds in Orgrimmar. Valeera had not forgiven Brawl for his insults, and she drained a little bit of his energy. She expected that they would fight each other, but another team was training and they taunted their group, calling them a nature lover, a turncoat, and even a coward. Again, Valeera doesn't like to get insulted and she charged immediately into battle, getting her ass kicked. Brawl and Varian jumped in and tried to help her, but Brawl couldn't transform because she had stolen his energy, so he too got his ass handed to him. The Tauren nearly killed him, but thankfully Varian is no pushover and he managed to take out the team and protect the elves. Valeera thanked him for saving Brawl's life because she didn't really want to hurt Brawl, she just wanted to teach him a lesson. The fighting wasn't over yet, Rhaegar wasn't done with his new team, they still needed to learn to expect the unexpected. This fight was just a warm-up and the next foe was Blade Master Haiku Steel Edge. Haiku laughed at them for being so very weak and he was about to strike down Brawl, but Valeera stepped in. He quickly pushed Valeera to the side, but thankfully Varian was there. Haiku underestimated Varian greatly. He thought that he was just a novice gladiator, but even though Varian had lost his memories, he had not lost his fighting skills and he quickly took care of the Blade Master. With that, their training was done and Valeera felt really sorry about what she had done to Brawl. As a reward, they were allowed to pick an item from the Halls of Legends. This is the place where Valeera got her weapons from: orcish daggers, long as swords and sharp as dragon's teeth. Brawl took a druid staff from the armory, while Varian found a belt. Touching this belt triggered one of his last memories of when he was a child, fleeing from Stormwind together with Anduin Lothar. This belt was no ordinary belt, this belt used to belong to Lothar himself, and Varian took it with him. All the way to the Dire Maul Arena, where they were pitched against some of the greatest gladiator teams in hopes of becoming the champions of the Crimson Ring. The battles were not easy, but each of them brought skills to the group. Brawl had Battle Fury, Varian knew how to lead them and he had fighting skills, while Valeera was quick, both with her mind and with her body. Against all odds, they managed to win, earning Varian the title of Logash and Valeera the reward of being sold to a new team. She would become the leader of this team, so it wasn't that bad of a deal, but still the team was split up. Brawl and Varian promised her that they would break free and come back for Valeera, but she didn't need them. She managed to escape herself by pretending to be this helpless little girl, and when she was on a griffin over the forest, she made her move. She made the griffin drop her escort and quickly hid away into the forest. Then she circled around and made her way back to Thunderbluff in an attempt to rescue Brawl and Varian. In the meantime, they met with Hamul Runetotem and Hamul gave them a blue hippogriff feather. Brawl was a druid, so he was able to use this feather to summon the griffin to which it belonged. This was just as Hamul had planned, and Rhaegar saw them escape, but by this time he already made so much money that he didn't really care. Valeera arrived at Thunderbluff just in time to see Brawl and Varian escape, but she also overheard Megafa Grimtotem. Megafa was talking with an assassin sent by Onyxia. Remember that Onyxia wanted this side of Varian dead, and she found out that he was still alive, so she sent someone to kill him. Valeera overheard what he was planning to do, so she flew after him in hopes of rescuing Varian from his would-be murderer. This journey, this chase behind the assassin and Varian and Brawl would take them all over the continent, since Varian and Brawl had their own little adventure. This led Brawl to dealing with demons from the past, and Varian was trying to figure out who exactly he was. They made their way to Ashenvale, where the Sentinels told the assassin exactly what he wanted to know. They did this because he was a human, so they assumed that he was part of the Alliance, while they instantly attacked Valeera because she was a Blood Elf. She managed to escape the Sentinels, fly to Darnassus, where once again the assassin got his information and she had to follow him from the shadows. Valeera finally managed to catch up to him as they made their way to Veremor. Varian and Brawl, they were going there because Tyrande had told them that Jaina would be able to help Varian find his memories. Just as the assassin was about to shoot Varian, Valeera threw her dagger into his back, saving Varian's life. Varian and Brawl didn't even notice this, but both Valeera and the assassin, they fell off their mounts into a huge spider web. Valeera tried to convince the assassin to tell her who had sent him, but he wasn't about to talk, and the owner of the web just showed up for a nice little meal. Valeera had saved the day, had saved Varian's life, but she was badly beaten herself. Thankfully, Aegwynn had seen her fall from the sky, and she took her to Veremor where she could heal and rest. In the meantime, Varian and Brawl were busy with figuring out who Varian was, and they had found out that he was the last king of Stormwind. They made plans to go back to Varian's kingdom, but before they would, they first wanted to go and save Valeera. Valeera popped up and told them that that wouldn't be necessary, that she already had freed herself and the group was reunited. Their next journey would be to Menethil Harbor, and from there they would travel to Stormwind. As they sailed across the sea, they were attacked by Naga. Brawl got in a lot of trouble during that fight, and Valeera could see that the staff of the Naga Sea Witch held powerful arcane magic. Magic she could use to boost her power, but Brawl told her not to do it. Giving in to just a little bit of that magic would feed her natural addiction, but she didn't listen. She had to help Brawl, so she took the staff, drained some of its powers, and she used it to save him. What she did at that moment, she did with the best intentions, but Brawl's warning would soon come true. With her first taste, she hungered for more, and when they defeated the Naga and reached Menethil Harbor, she drained the very first person that she saw. At Menethil Harbor, they also ran into a drunk who recognized Varian and told him that he shouldn't be alive. They followed the drunk back to the tavern and ended up in a huge brawl where the dwarf Targus and Vomar showed up and helped them out. Targus was sent by King Magni Bronzebeard to escort Logash back to Ironforge. During the battle in the tavern, Valeera once again finds a fix and she drains a wizard of his magic. Again, she does this with the best intentions, since the wizard was about to attack Varian, but that wasn't her only motivation. She was now addicted to the magic, and it became even worse the next day when they crossed the market. One vendor was selling a dagger infused with fel magic, and as Valeera touched the blade, touched the fel magic, it tasted very, very sweet. Brawl slapped the dagger out of her hands, and he quickly moved her away from more temptations. On the way to Ironforge, they moved deeper into the wetlands, where they came across a group of dark iron dwarves. Normally this group wouldn't be a problem, but Valeera was so shaking from withdrawal that she couldn't even throw her daggers right, and Brawl took an axe in the back because of this. This was a clear message to Valeera that she needed help, and she promised Brawl that she would do anything, drink any of his herbal remedies to get over her addiction. In the meantime, the other side of Varian, the weak-willed side, was ransomed back to Stormwind, and this version was easily placed under Onyxia's control. She still wanted Logash Varian dead, so she sent a new assassin after him, this time a blooded warlock named Vendellin Soulfire. Vendellin found the group, and he noticed that Valeera had tasted fell magic before. She even craved it, and he placed a curse on her called the Mark of Kathra'natir. Kathra'natir was a powerful dreadlord, defeated by the first guardian, and now with this mark placed on her, the demon lived inside, crawling in her skin, crawling in her mind, through her very soul. The group managed to kill the warlock easy enough, but the damage was done. Valeera, after finally coming around to her addiction, now all hope seemed lost. She asked Brawl to put her down, to not let her live with this curse, and he promised her that he would do anything in his power to help her deal. He made a special brew for her which could ease her withdrawal pains, and for a while it seemed like she had things under control. That is, until they reached the gates of Ironforge. In Ironforge, one of Onyxia's dragons in disguise was waiting for Varian, and Valeera saw his magical dagger. She attacked the dragon, again to save Varian's life, but in the process she also gave in to the demon inside. She fed his powers with absorbing that magic, and she started cursing in Eredun, and she nearly attacked Brawl and Varian herself. Brawl and Varian, they had to go to Blackrock Depths to free Marshal Windsor, who was close to discovering the identity of the black dragon who caused all of Varian's problems. Valeera's actions made it clear that she had to stay behind and deal with her conditions, because clearly she wasn't in control of the situation. Blackrock Depths also holds a whole bunch of magical artifacts, and if she would pass them, she would drain them and she would give them away. She wasn't happy with staying behind, but that night she had to deal with the pain of not getting her fix, and she saw a vision of her parents. They told her that Brawl, that Varian, that all of them were arrogant and without honor. They had left Valeera behind, like everyone else in her life, and this vision called to her. They told her that this world was broken, and that it could only be healed by death. The death of all who live.
I will be your death!
Out of nowhere, a blinding light appeared, destroying these fake visions. Aegwynn herself had come to Valeera's rescue, sensing that she was battling with a powerful force inside of her. Aegwynn no longer had the power to cleanse Valeera of Kathra'natir, but she told her that she was not alone. She had Aegwynn, she had Varian, she had Brawl, she had so many who loved her and cared for her, that she could not give in to the temptations of Kathra'natir. Valeera was stronger than that, and when she felt that she wasn't, she had others backing her up. Valeera returned to her chambers, took another sip of Brawl's brew, and although it wasn't easy, she managed to get her addiction under control. She starved the demon inside of her of any magical power, and she regained control. Brawl and Varian eventually returned from Blackrock Depths together with the Marshal, and they now knew who was behind all of this. They made plans to return to Stormwind to reveal the imposter, and now that Valeera was clean, she was more than welcome to join them. The next part of the story is mainly about Varian. They end up in Stormwind, where they reveal that Lady Prestor is actually Onyxia. Weak-willed Varian was already busy with breaking himself free from Onyxia's spell, and now that this was all revealed, he teamed up with Logash. Anduin gets kidnapped, they attack Onyxia to get him back, and in the process both Varians are hit by a spell, putting them back together, restoring him as he once was. Onyxia is defeated. Anduin is saved, and they decide to do what Varian wanted to do at the very start. A peace summit between the Alliance and the Horde. Unfortunately, this peace summit wouldn't be so peaceful. Garona half Orphan, an unwilling assassin who killed Varian's father, was caught by Cho'gal. He used a spell that was placed on her mind at a very early age to force her to attack Fedamore and mess up the negotiations. Her son Medan found out about this, and he made his way to Fedamore in an attempt to save her. The negotiations themselves were actually going well. Varian and Thrall were getting along with each other, and as they stepped out for a moment, the Twilight's Hammer clan attacked. Kathra'natir nearly took out Varian, but Valeera jumped in and saved his life again. Varian recognized Kathra'natir from his childhood, and he immediately accused the Horde of sending the same assassin after him. Garrosh doesn't like to be insulted, and he said that this was the work of the Alliance. Now those with a cooler head, like Valeera or Rhaegar, they realized that there were races from both factions, so it didn't look like either faction had sent them. Nonetheless, at this point, the peace negotiations were over. Kathra'natir was saved from Varian by Medan, but in the process Medan was captured by the Twilight's Hammer clan, while Kathra'natir was put in chains at Vedemore. The Lich King started his campaign against the world, so both factions made their way home to deal with this threat. Valeera, after teaching Anduin how to throw a knife, told Varian that she wanted to stay behind and help Kathra'natir find her son. Not just because she had sympathy for Kathra'natir, but because she held the answers. Kathra'natir knew who had attacked them, and Valeera figured that in order to keep Varian and Anduin safe, she had to find out who was behind all of this. Now Kathra'natir desperately wanted to tell them she wanted them to save her son, but there were magical spells placed on her mind blocking her from the truth. Jaina could get it out of her, but it would cause Kathra'natir agonizing pain. Pain she was ready to accept if they would rescue her son. Jaina used her powers, Kathra'natir screamed in agony, but she was able to tell them where they would find Medan and Cho'gal, namely in Ankirai. Valeera had made a promise to Kathra'natir that she would help her son. Merrill, an undead mage who raised Medan for Kathra'natir, also showed up at Vedemore and offered his help. At first, Valeera didn't want anything to do with him. The Scourge nearly wiped out all of her people, so working with an undead like Merrill was not something she was willing to do. It was only because Aegwynn asked her that she was willing to accept Merrill's aid, and they teleported to Ankirai. At Ankirai, it wasn't exactly hard to find Medan, since Cho'gal had placed him on top of the corpse of Kafun. Valeera freed Medan, while Merrill took care of the guards, but then Cho'gal showed up. Cho'gal was working for Kafun, and he wanted to resurrect this fallen old god, and Kafun was empowering him. This meant that he was incredibly powerful, and he easily took out Merrill. This left Valeera alone to stand against this monster, and she told Medan to heal up Merrill so they could teleport away. In the meantime, she drained Merrill of some of his powers because she would need this power boost to stand against Cho'gal. Remember that Valeera still had the mark of Kathra'natir on her, and by not feeding herself any magic, she was able to starve and contain the demon. Now she gave him the magical power that he craved, and Cho'gal recognized the demon inside. He taunted the demon to come out and play, and while Valeera did her best, she could not hold Cho'gal. The demon whispered inside of her, promising her the world, promising that he could take care of Cho'gal. Valeera thought to herself that at this moment Brawl would say rather to die than to free the demon. But Valeera thought it was better to live, for who knows what the morrow might bring. She accepted the demon inside, told him that he could take over her body if he would save them and the others. Kathra'natir, after millennia, was finally free, and he fought with Cho'gal. Even his incredible powers were not enough to bring down the giants, but it did buy them enough time for Medan to heal Merrill, and Merrill to teleport them all away. Once they were safe, the demon recognized Medan's incredible power, and he desperately wanted to take over his body and his mind. Before he could, Merrill stepped in, and he made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Exchanged the body of Valeera for Merrill himself. Now this ancient undead human also contained the spirit of Kathra'natir. But Merrill was not just a simple mage, and he was able to contain the demon. At least for the moment. Valeera was now free of the demon who had hunted her for months, and she thanked Merrill with all her heart. After this moment, it seemed like Valeera's story was done. The next things that she did was assisting the new Council of Tirisfal, and she helped Kathra'natir with bringing the base of Aetish, Great Staff of the Guardian, to Medan. Medan used his staff to defeat Cho'gal, and that's the end of the story in the comics. After that moment, she hasn't done much at all. We saw her in-game during Wrath of the Lich King, where she was part of the pre-launch event. The story from the comics has retconned that moment, meaning that it never happened. She did have a part in the Battle of Undercity back in Wrath of the Lich King, where she helped Varian in claiming the city.
The march upon the Undercity begins now. Be empowered by your king's strength. Follow me, heroes, for the glory of the Alliance.
In the novel Stormrage, which takes place just after Wrath of the Lich King, Brawl asked Varian how Valeera was doing, and Varian told him that she'd left Stormwind and nobody had seen her for weeks. Apparently she's been working on her card skills because they have turned her into one of the heroes that you can play in Hearthstone.
Watch your back.
Like I said, story-wise, she hasn't done much, and I would love to see a return of Valeera within the game. I love what they did with her in the comic. Valeera might not have received much story, but what she did was excellent. She had an addiction story, she overcame that addiction, she accepted the demon inside of her to save others. All of her story time was either protecting others or saving others, and that makes Valeera one of the greater heroes. She might not receive the credit that she deserves, but she was a huge part of some of the major events within Warcraft. Her loyalties are not towards the Horde or the Alliance. Last we heard is that her loyalties are with Varian and Anduin, which leaves her open for being a part of a lot of storylines. I wonder why they haven't used her in the Cataclysm. For example, when Katrana was hunting Cho'gal. Or why they didn't use her at the start of Mr. Pandaria, with the whole rescue Anduin mission. Hopefully they're saving her for something good, since it's unclear where she is and what she's been doing. Only time will tell what they're going to do with Valeera. But for now, this is the end of her story, and this is the end of my video. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time, guys, see ya!